the Bell Sugarbelt 400, which took place in KwaZulu-Natal. Highlights of the Bell Sugarbelt 400 are proudly presented by Bell Equipment, AGA Panasonic, Toyota and SVM. The farming community of Eston, a short distance from Pietermaritzburg, played host earlier this month to the third round of the South African Off-Road Championship. The Bell Sugarbelt 400 attracted the biggest field of the season so far, with a full turnout of the country's leading car, bike and quad racers. Going into the Bell Sugarbelt 400, the Eastern Cape crew of Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton were the Special Vehicle Championship leaders. They were followed by Wade Perrins and Derek Frankenberg in a Sandmaster, and reigning champions Herman and Karl-Heinz Silvold. After a controversial victory in round 2 of the championship, the brother and sister team at Marius and Margie Borain were among the favourites for what promised to be a difficult event.
This is unfortunately one of those races, if you put a wheel wrong, you fall off. You've got to be you can't afford to go wrong. Yeah.
One of the off-road talking points of the season is the awesome Motortech Raceco being campaigned by Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne.
It's really a world prototype. It was the first attempt as such by a space frame builder such as Raceco to build a truck. A vehicle that resembles a truck with a front wheel, engine in the front and a gearbox. There is one other frame being built at the moment in California, and I'm working together with a friend of mine called Rick Scalza. Particulars of the car, it uses a 6-litre V8 motor, about 400 horsepower, an automatic gearbox and a very special rear diff where you can change the diff within, I'd say, probably 15 minutes you can change your gear ratios.
The Natal crew of Derek Pinoy and Hilton Laurie set the fastest time in the pre-race time trial and led away the field in the special vehicle category. It was a short event for the Raceco pair, who were forced out for the blown engine within half an hour of the start. This put the Sawald brothers into the lead in the Sawald Transport Raceco. The Palaboro brothers are the reigning special vehicle champions, but going into the Sugarbelt 400, we're still without a win this season. Off-roaders are suckers for early morning starts, and sections of the route were very slippery in the early stages of a race that was going to take its toll. The Sawalds were followed by Nick Harper and Richard Hill in the Pro-M Rockwell Raceco, with soon-to-retire Nardis Alberts and Peter Mathieu in hot pursuit in the Rapsa Raceco. Fourth on the road at this stage were Marius and Margie Borain in the Toyota-powered Raceco. With the previous day's time trial results added to time elapsed on the route, some crews had plenty of ground to make up and were faced with tactical decisions. The father and son team of FRANZ CZEPEK Senior and Junior decided on a safety-first policy in the early stages in the V-Motors Raceco. Veteran racer Harry Roscoe in the Protea playing card single-seater Raceco was up with the leading bunch and going well, despite having to both drive and navigate. Championship frontrunners Wade Perrins and Derek Frankenberg ran into early problems, with Rob Gibson the early leader in Class B and ahead of a Botswana crew, JJ Volmorans and Steve Cooper in another Raceco. The Natal pair of John Rowe and Nick Finch were running steadily in the home-built JRE Special. Rowe is a former track racing star who is now a regular competitor on the national off-road events. Looking like astronauts out for a drive in their moon buggy, Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne were finding the Motortech Raceco a handful in the tight, twisty conditions. Having 400 horsepower on tap is not always an advantage, and the pair had lost touch with the frontrunners. Behind them, some interesting battles were starting to develop as the warm autumn sun started to dry out the route. The sun could do little about drying out wet patches in the sugarcane fields, and a number of crews were caught out in the slippery conditions. Among them were the Sawald brothers, who lost valuable seconds with a foray into the cane. Like Schilling and Thorne, the Sawalds were finding it tough going and had fallen behind the Borains, who looked strong contenders for a second successive win. The safety-first tactics adopted by the CZEPEKs was also paying dividends as they moved through the field into a challenging position. The The seal coat car, driven by Rob Gibson, was still running at the front of Class B. With the engine starting to sound a little rough, matters were looking ominous for Gibson. Gibson was having to nurse the car along and was being rapidly caught by John Rowe and Nick Finch, who were to finish 5th overall in an impressive performance. Behind them, Harry Roscoe in the Protea Playing Cards Raceco was making a determined effort to make up for lost time and had moved ahead of Andy Gray and Alec Harris in the Sani Raceco. The Gray-Harris combination was being chased by the single-seater lubrication equipment Raceco, being shared by Richard Carolyn and younger brother Bux. With big brother Obut doing the driving in the early stages, the pair worked their way into 3rd place overall. The route for the Sugarbelt 400 was made up of 2 loops each of an east and west course. Competitors were forced to check in at control points at the start and finish and along the route, with the service area at the start-finish line often a hive of activity as cars took on fuel with running repairs often needed for ailing machinery.
Is that the new one? Dad, this thing's gonna go. You change it. Yeah, let's lift it. China, this one's also gonna go.
In true off-road spirit, rival teams pitch in to help each other out, with Bux Carolyn doing some servicing for Nick Harper and Richard Hill. Out on the route, the Borains looked to have the race in the bag when they slid off the road with the car landing on a large rock. The father and son team of FRANZ CZEPEK Senior and Junior had moved into 2nd place in the V-Motors Raceco, which is not sounding all that healthy. The Solwald brothers, Herman and Karl-Heinz, were in a hot pursuit and in turn were being chased by the Carolyn brothers. The Carolyns were to eventually catch the Solwalds, but there was drama at the front of the field when the CZEPEKs cruised past the still stranded Borains to move into the lead. Marius and Margie Borain managed to get going again, but had to be content with 2nd place behind the CZEPEKs.
We went slowly at the beginning, first 2 laps, and after the 2 laps we were going to go a bit quicker when it dried out. But then unfortunately we lost 1 cylinder, so we were running on 3 cylinders, so we had to really battle, keep the revs up and keep going. And well, a lot of the guys fell out and we were lucky we came in first.
Family teams dominated the top 4 placings, with FRANZ CZEPEK Senior and Junior scoring their first win of the season. The unfortunate Borains finished ahead of the Carolyn and Solwald brothers, with John Rowe and Nick Finch 5th overall. Enjoying national championship status for the 2nd year, the quad racer brigade arrived at the Bell Sugarbelt 400 with Christo van der Merwe and Vickers van Deventer sharing top place in the championship. They were followed by Yuri Duplessis, Derek Johnson and Billy Coetzee, with Yamaha dominating the manufacturer's stakes. The quad racer category has shown tremendous growth this season and now caters for 2 classes of machine. Class K accommodates standard machines, with Class L for modified vehicles. The Class L quads are sophisticated pieces of machinery and provide for some spectacular racing. Up for the early frontrunners was Paul Breckel on a Yamaha Banshee. Breckel was being chased by Yuri Duplessis on the Team Gap Yamaha, with Peter Breckel on another Yamaha Banshee pushing as hard as he could and getting the quad sideways on the loose surface. Quad racing is certainly not for the faint of heart. It takes a great deal of muscle as well as skill and technique to get the best out of a quad racer in rough conditions. Christo van der Merwe on the Yamaha Blaster was losing ground to the leaders and anxiously checking for a mechanical problem. As with the motorcycles, the quad racers need to refuel on the route with additional fuel stored at official service points. For the young locals, it was all rather strange. But for race leader Derek Johnson on the number 5 Yamaha, there was work to be done. Race leader Derek Johnson was gradually pulling away from the rest of the field. Christo van der Merwe was soldiering on, but was losing ground with what appeared to be an engine misfire. There were no such problems for Paul Breckel, who was in a safe 2nd place when he pulled into the service area. Behind Breckel, Yuri Duplessis, putting in a steady ride, had moved into 3rd spot. With leader Derek Johnson and 2nd place Paul Breckel in total control of proceedings, Yuri Duplessis had slipped into 3rd place but was around 6 minutes behind Breckel. Duplessis' teammate Francois Smit was going along steadily but was being caught by Billy Coetzee. At the front of the field, Derek Johnson was going like a rocket on the orange ABC Team Yamaha. Johnson had opened up a gap of around 10 minutes over the rider in second place, but had no intention of taking it easy. Behind Johnson, it was Paul Breckel who had tightened his grip on second place. At the finish, Derek Johnson was a comfortable winner ahead of Paul Breckel, who had 6 minutes to spare over third place Yuri Duplessis. Fourth place went to Billy Coetzee in the first Suzuki home. There was early drama in the